Alright, subpart B, records and reporting, 228.7, the hours of the duty. The purpose of this part of the time on the duty employee actually engaged in connected with the movement and with the train, includes the whole story beginning with the report of the duty and with the final relief of the duty. It includes time engaged with the and connected with the movement of the train, intermittent period with available, the rest for the location not of the design for the designated terminal, intermittent period with less than the 4 with the hours available, the rest for the designated with the terminal, time spent with the deadhead, transportation and route with the duty assignment, and time engaged in any other surface of the career of the time spent with the deadhead transportation employee returning with the duty has its point with the final release may not be counted for the computing time of the duty. Time off duty and the time on duty. For this purpose of the spot time on the duty, the employee will do dispatch reports and turns train to receive deliveries orders pertaining to the train movement, the the telegraphic, telephone, radio, any other electrical mechanical device, includes all the time, included other services performed with the common care during the 24-hour period involved. The purpose of this part of the time of the duty employee will engage in installing, repairing, and maintaining the signal system includes on all times the duty the other services and performed as a common carrier during the 24-hour period involved. 228.9 with the records general. Each of the manual record of maintained within the Safari shall be signed with the employee with the time of the duty recorded within the case of the train and crew with the signing and employee gang signed by the ranking crew member to retain the 2 years of location identified by the carrier available upon request to identify the location inspection copy the administrator with the regular business hour each electronic record maintained under this part shall be certified with the employee who at the time of the duty recorded within case of the train with the engine crew with the single employee gang certified with the reporting employee who is the members of the train crew with the single gang with whose time to be recorded, electronically stamped with the certifying the employee's name, the date, and the time of the certification retained with the 2 years secured with the file to prevent alteration of the certification accessibility by the administrator through the computer terminal with the railroad. Use of the railroad provided with the identification code, unique password, reproducible, use of the printing capability, location where the records access. 228.11. The hours of the duty records in general. Each railroad contract with subcontractor of the railroad shall keep the record of each of the manually electronically concerned with the hours of the duty with each of the employee, each of the contractor, subcontractor of the railroad shall also record the name of the railroad with the form the employee with the form of the conservative services. Cover the services during the duty with the cover of the record employees who perform the covered services and assignment of the single duty of tour for there are subject to the record keeping the requirements more than one paragraph. The section must complete with the record applicable to cover the services position for which they are called with the record with the covered services actively continuing with the other services and the behest for the railroad for the train employees except for the provided in paragraph C with the section each of the hour of the duty with the train employee shall include the following information for the employee about the employee's identification with each of the employee's initial name and the last for the name of the not the employee's surname of the employee, the initial surname, each cover the service position, the duty of the tour, the amount of the time of the duty, but the beginning with the new cover the service assignment, the resuming the tour, train idea, each for the assignment, the required for the report, for the part of the example, the following employees who may be the set for the report for the unique job of the train idea, identifying their assignment. Utility employees assigned to perform the covered services were identified as such of the unique train or train ID with employees assigned to the yard jobs. Except for the employees assigned to perform the yard jobs on all and parts of the consecutive shifts must also at least report with the yard assignment of each for the shift. The assignment of the other, either regular or extra, of the specifically established shuttle of the train into and out of the terminal during the single duty for the tour, to identify the unique of the job of the train symbol as such assignment. The location, date, and the beginning of the time of the assignment, the first assignment, and due to the tour and the duty tours that exceed for the 12 hours concludes the qualified period with the interim release provided in Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 21103. Location, date, beginning of the time of the immediately following the intermittent release. 6. Location, date, and the time of leave of the last assignment of duty of the tour to exceed the 12 hours, including the qualifying period in term of the release provided in the Title 49 Standard Code 21103 with the location, date, and the time of leave of the assignment immediately preceding the intermittent release. 7. Location, the date, and time of leave for the last assignment of the duty of the tour duty of the tour exceeds 12 hours, including the qualifying period of the time and the interim relief of the provided in Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 21103 3B with the location, the date, with the time of leave of the assignment immediately preceding the intermittent release. Beginning of the end of the location, date, and the time of the period spent with the transportation of the personal community if any of the first assignment of the duty of the tour from the assignment to the location for the period of the intermittent relief, the period of the interim relief, the next assignment, or from the last appointment, assignment of the duty of the tour point of the final release, including the mode of the transportation, train, track of the railroad provided with the motor vehicle, personal automobile, the beginning of the end of the location, date, with the time, and any other service performed with the behalf of the railroad, identification code of the service type of any other service performed at the behest of the railroad, total time of the duty, the 12, the reason for any of the service with exceeding 12 hours of the total time of the duty for the duty tour. 13. The total amount of the time which is the sum of the total time of the duty time that was spent away from the deadhead for the transportation to the point of the final release exceeds 12 hours. 14. The cumulative time of the total time of the calendar month, the time spent with the covered service, the time spent away from the deadhead transportation for the duty assignment, the place of the final release. 3. The time spent with any other service is the behalf of the railroad. 15. Cumulative total of the calendar month, the time spent away from the deadhead transportation for the duty assignment, the place of the final release following the period of 12 consecutive hours of duty. The number of the consecutive days in which the period of time duty was initiated. Exceptions to the requirement of the train employees. Paragraph B13 through B16. The sections do not apply to the hours of duty required with the train employee to provide with the community rail passenger train for the intercity rail for the train passenger transportation. In addition to the information required with the paragraph B1 through B12, the section each of the hours of the duty of the record train employee provided with the community railway passenger train the intercity railway transportation shall include the following information: the train the employees provided with the community railway passenger train the intercity railway passenger trains, the date of which for the series of more than 14 consecutive calendar days each of the day began the day of the tour. For the train employees provided with the community railway passenger the transportation intercity railway passenger train transportation and the day of the day of duty of the tour during the series of the more than 14 consecutive calendar days that the employee did not initiate the on-duty period. For the dispatching services employees, each of the hours recorded with the dispatching services employees shall be including the following information about the employee: identification for the employee's initial with the last name, with the last name not the employee's surname, provided with the employee's initials and surname. Each of the covered to serve the position and the duty of the tour, of the amount of the time of the duty off, the given of the on-duty, the return of the duty and the tour, location, date of the beginning of time of each of the assignment of the day of the tour, duty of the tour, location, date of the time released each of the assignment of the duty of the tour, beginning of the end of the location, date and time of any other services performed with the behest of the railroad time of the duty of the tour. The single employee with each of the hours of duty recorded with the single employee shall include the following information about the employee: identification of the employee initials and last name, the last name with the name and not with the employee's surname, provided with the employee's initial surname, each of the officers service position and the duty of the tour. 3. The headquarters location for the employee for the amount of the time of the duty for the before going off duty, on duty and resuming the duty tour. Location, day of the beginning of the time each for the covered service and the assignment of the duty tour. Location, day and the time of each for the covered service assignment of the duty tour. Location, date and time release for each of the covered service assignment in the duty tour. Beginning with the end of the location, date of the time spent, period spent in the transportation, other personal communicating to and from the duty of the assignment, the mode of the transportation, train, track, the car, related railroad provided with motor vehicle, personal automobile, etc. Beginning the end of the location, date of the time, any other service that performed the behalf of the railroad, total time of the duty of the tour, reason for any of the services exceeding 12 hours of total time of the duty for the duty. 228.13 reserved. 228.17 dispatcher record of the train movement. Each for the carrier shall keep the dispatching district the record of the train movements made under the discretion of the control of the dispatcher. Even the telegraphic, telephone, radio, any of the electrical, mechanical devices dispatch, report, transmit, receive, deliver the orders pertaining to the train movements. The following information shall include the recorded identification table in effect. 2. Location of the day. 3. The identification of the dispatcher for the time of the duty. 4. The weather condition for the 6-hour interval. The identification of the engineman conductor at their time of the duty. 6. The identification of the train and engine. 7. The train station name and other designations. 8. The distance between the trains. Alright, distance between two stations. Direct movement of the time in each train passes all the report stations. Every arrival, the departure times, time the trains, all the reporting stations. Unusual events affecting the movement of the trains and identification of trains affected. The reserve monthly reports of access and general acceptance provided with the paragraph B of the section. Each railroad and contractor, subcontractor of the railroad shall report the Associated Administrative Railroad Safety Chief of the Safety Officer, Federal Railroad Administration, Washington, D.C. 20590 for each of the instances of the success of the listed in paragraph B through E of the section of the manager provided with the paragraph F of the section within 30 days for the calendar month within the instance for the curve before the train employees for the exemptions provided in paragraph C with the section following instance for the success of the service by the train employees must be reappointed by the half period required with the section. A train employee is on duty for the more than 12 consecutive hours. The train employee continues duty without the at least for the 10 consecutive hours off the duty during the preceding 24 hours. An instance involved with the duty with the tours are broken by less than 10 consecutive hours. The duty with the tours constitute more than 22 total of 12 hours time of the day must be reported. The train employee with the return to duty without the latest 10 consecutive hours of the duty during off duty during the period preceding 24 hours of the incident that involved the duty of the tour for the broken less than 10 consecutive hours of the day of the duty tours that constitute more than total 12 hours of time duty must be reported. A train employee returns for the duty without additional time off the duty equal to the time of the amount of the time which the employee sum of the time of the duty for the time spent awaiting for the deadhead transportation to point the final release exceeding 12 hours. The train employee exceed for the cumulative of the total hours of 276 hours of the following activities of the calendar year calendar month, the time spent of the covered service of the time spent away from the deadhead of the transportation, each of the duty assignment, the place for the final release for the 3 of the time spent with any other service, 3 head for the railroad, the train employee, the initiate the on duty period on more than 6 consecutive days on duty period for the 6 consecutive days, and of the employee home terminal and several consecutive days not allowed to pursue the pursuant to collective bargaining agreement of the pilot project. 7, the train employee returned to the duty initiating on duty period of the 6 consecutive days within 48 consecutive hours off the duty with the employee's home terminal. The train employee initiated the on-duty period on more than 7 consecutive days. 9, after the train returned to the duty, initiating on-duty period of 7 consecutive days without 72 consecutive hours off the duty at the employee's home terminal. The train employee exceeded the following limitation for the time spent awaiting with the deadhead transportation for the duty assignment to the place for the final release following the period of 12 consecutive hours of the duty. 1. That 40 hours in the calendar month completed with the prior to October 1st, 2009, 20 hours the transition period from October 1st of 2009 to October 15th, 2009, and 15 hours the transition period from October 16th, 2009 to October 31st, 2009. 4. The 30 hours the each of hours in any calendar month completed with October 31st, 2009, exemption for the requirements for the train employees, everything for the train employee for the provided community railway passenger transportation, intercity rail passenger transportation during the tour duty with the following instances of the excessive service must be reported with the FRA required with this by the section. The train employee with the duty with more than 12 consecutive hours. The train employee returned to the duty 12 consecutive hours. The ship without 10 consecutive hours of duty. Off duty with the train employee with the contained with the duty with at least 8 consecutive hours off the duty during the 24 hours preceding incident involved with the duty tour of the broken less than 8 consecutive hours off the duty with the tour. Duty of the tour is considered to do more than the total of 12 hours time doing the most may be reported. The train employee returned to the duty without least of the 8 consecutive hours of the duty during the preceding 24 hours of the incidents involved with the duty of the tours are broken less than 8 consecutive hours of duty. Off duty with the duty of the tours consume more than total of 12 hours of time on duty must be reported. The train employee with the first initial on-duty period with each of the day of the 6-month consecutive calendars, including more and more the type of assignment of the last duty on period of the end of the employee's home and terminal initiates the on-duty period without having the 24 consecutive hours of duty at the employee's home terminal. A train employee after the first initial initiating on-duty period with each of the day with the 6 consecutive day with more and more the type 2 assignments initiate the 2 or more duty periods without having the 24 consecutive hours off the duty of the employee's home terminal. The train employees are initiating on-duty periods with 13 or more calendar days during the series of the 14 consecutive calendar days as defined in statute 228-405-A3 and 1. Last on which the end of the employee's home terminal then initiates on-duty period without having at least 2 consecutive calendar days off duty with the employee's home terminal. A train employees after initiating on-duty period with 13 or more calendar days during the series of more than 14 consecutive days are defined in statute 228-405-A3-1 and initiating 2 more of the on-duty period without having at least 2 consecutive calendar days off duty. The employee's home terminal for the dispatching service employee the following instances for the every excessive service the dispatching service employees must be reported to the FRA was required for this section. The dispatching services employed on duty more than 9 hours in any 24-hour period in the office with the 2 or more shifts that are employed. The dispatching services employee is on duty for more than 12 hours in any 24-hour shift in any of the office where the on shift is employed. 1 in shift is employed for the single employee for the following instance for the excessive service the signal employees must be reported with the FRA required in this section. A signal employee is on duty with more than 12 consecutive hours. The signal employee constitute the duty without 10 consecutive hours off the duty during the 24-hour period 24 hours. 3. A single employee returns to duty without at least 10 consecutive hours of the duty during the preceding the 24 hours, except the provided in paragraph H of this section. Reports required for the paragraph B and B through E of this section shall be filed with the written with the FRA form 61803-3 with the Office of the Railroad Safety Federal Railroad Administration, Washington D.C. 20590, but a separate form that shall be used with each for the instances reported. G is an electronic signature for the purpose of the complying with the paragraph of the F of the section. The signature required with the form FRA 61803 may be provided with the FRA by means of electronic signature, provided that the record contained with the print of the name of the sign with the date of the acute to actual time of the signature with the executed meaning of such of the authorship review and approval associated with the signature. Each electronic signature shall be uniquely individual, shall not be used with the sign of anyone less than before the railroad or the contractor or subcontractor of the railroad establishes, sign, certifies, or otherwise sanctions any individual electronic signature, any element of such electronic signature. The organization shall verify the identifier of the individual. Persons using electronic signature shall prior to in or at time such of the certified by the agency with electronic signature in their system used on after the effective date of the regulation legally bind equivalent traditional written hand signature of the certification shall be substituted with the paper form signatures with the traditional handwritten signature associated administrator of the rail safety chief safety officer 6. The person using the electronic signature shall upon request of the provide additional certification testing with a specific electronic signature, legally binding equivalent signature, and signer's handwritten signature exemption railroad with the contract subcontract with railroad executed for the requirements of the paragraph A through A and F of which of the employees which 1. Railroad of the contractor, subcontractor, railroad of main for the hours of service, the records for the electronic record keeping the system of the comply with the requirements of subpart D for this part of the electronic record keeping system referred to paragraph H1. The assist action requires the employee to answer the explanation for the excess for the service certified by the employee, the railroad, or the contractor or subcontractor of the railroad to analyze each of the instances of success for the service with the certified by one of its employees, make the determination of whether each instance for the success of service would be reportable under the provisions in paragraph B through E with the section that allow for the railroad contractor, subcontractor, railroad to pay with the analysis for the employee electronic record keeping. 3. Allow the FRA inspectors, state inspectors to participate under Title 49, Part 212, access to employee reports of the success of service and explanations provided. 228, 21, 20, reserved. 228, 23, reserved. Subpart C, construction railroad provided with the sleeping quarters.